civilization developed in the jungles and the highlands of Central America. Ancient Mayan lands are now part of what we know as Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. You can see the yellow area in the map behind me.
The Maya were short. The average man was a little bit taller than 5 feet. The women were about 4 feet 8 inches tall. Mayas had straight black hair and they often had tattoos. They tied boards with objects hanging from them to their babies' heads. This helped flatten their foreheads and encourage cross eyes, which were 2 things that Maya found appealing.
In the early days, the Maya lived in farming villages. They grew corn, beans, squash, chili peppers, and cotton. Men and boys hunted and fished. They raised turkeys for meat and bees for honey.
The women and girls wove beautiful cloth. They made pottery with painted flowers and animals on it. Maya men took turns as village leaders.
The Maya had a great interest in the movements of the moon, the stars, the planets, and the sun. Without any computers or telescopes, they were able to follow the movements of the sun and the phases of the moon. They used this information to create a calendar that had 365 days like ours.
The ancient Maya were remarkable people. They managed to build elaborate temples and great cities without what we would consider to be essential tools, metal and the wheel. The pyramids they built had terraces that rose up like steps. At the top, there were altars for religious ceremonies.
A Maya king was expected to be a military leader. He would often carry out raids against rival city-states. The ruler were also expected to have a great mind and solve problems that the city might be facing, including war and food crises.
The most important activities in the cities were the religious festivals. Every 20 days there was a festival. Brides would climb the pyramid steps, dressed in fierce masks to please the gods. Wearing huge headdresses, the Mayan danced performed in front of the pyramid or temple. Their headdresses were decorated with bells and shells, so every time they moved you could hear them rattle. The Maya had a system of writing. The writing looked like a set of pictures. Each picture was called a glyph. Each glyph stands for a word or the name of a person, place, or event. Glyphs were carved into a building and on stone pillars.
Glyphs were also used in Mayan books called codices. Mayan books could have told us so much about the Mayan people, but unfortunately there were only a few left. When the Spanish arrived in the 1500s, they thought the books were works of the evil, so they burned them.
The Maya also developed a simple number system. All Maya numbers are written using just 3 basic symbols. A dot stands for the number 1. When there are 5 dots, they become a line. The Maya also invented the concept of 0, which was represented by a picture of a shell.
The Maya loved ball games. Ball courts were usually placed at the base of a temple because all games were held to honor the Mayan gods. The ball courts had a hoop on each at one end. The game played was very rough. It was a mix of modern soccer, kickball, and basketball. Players could not touch the ball. They had to use their hips and feet and arms. The object of the game was to put the rubber ball through the hoop.
The Maya are responsible for some of the delicious foods we eat today. They were the first to take the seeds of the cacao fruit and roast them to make hot chocolate. The ancient Maya didn't make candy bars, nor did they add sugar or milk to the cacao.
For the Maya, cacao was a sacred gift of the gods, and cacao beans were used to trade for things that they needed. When the Spanish invaded Maya land in the 1500s, they decided to adopt the hot beverage. They decided to add sugar and milk to make it sweet and creamy.
The avocado, which comes from southern Mexico and Guatemala, was a treasured crop of the ancient Maya. Corn tortillas were part of the Maya culture as well. Tortillas are immensely satisfying, a perfect accompaniment to Guatemalan black beans, and a perfect base for a layer of guacamole.
Mayan music combined dance, music, and instruments while performing for many different occasions. The Mayans used more woodwinds rather than instruments like trumpets and drums made out of turtle shells. Music was played at public festivals before going into battle. If you attended a public festival, you might just hear something like this.
The Maya developed their own version of gods and goddesses and wrote stories about them. In Mayan mythology, the gods and heroes had many different names and appearances. These stories were passed down generation to generation to explain the forces of nature that they didn't understand. We'd like to present to you our interpretation of the Maya creation myth.